Want to take you live right now to back to Washington, D.C. This is a situation happening here, Senate nomination hearing. The Foreign Relations Committee holding this hearing to examine the ambassador nominations for Portugal, Sweden, and the United Nations. Taking place live here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
And a three-term congressman from Florida's 6th Congressional District, where he served on the committees on foreign affairs, intelligence, and armed services, chairing the subcommittee on readiness. And it was in that capacity where I started getting to know him better a few years ago, as he and I were working together on an effort to bring back a U.S. Navy officer who had been imprisoned in a foreign country. We eventually got that done in large measure because of Mike Waltz's great work. Beyond those committee assignments, Waltz served on the China task force that produced over 400 recommendations for managing that delicate relationship between the United States and China. Waltz also helped to unleash the President's America First Peace Through Strength foreign policy agenda that included a truce in the Middle East and delicate negotiations pertaining to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. He's a seasoned policy mind and a skilled negotiator with a track record of diligently pursuing American interests, unapologetically and with the appropriate amount of caution and attention to detail that those things deserve. That is exactly the type of policy leadership that's badly needed at the United Nations at this moment in history. The U.S. right now, frankly, has some legitimate concerns about the UN. And to be perfectly frank, the UN is, in many respects, a disaster and a detriment to U.S. interests, where the U.S. is shouldering the financial burden of an international body only to be on the losing side of so many votes and so many policy decisions that are made at the UN. And this cannot continue. The President is absolutely correct in his decision to pause our contributions, to review U.S. participation within the bloated system, and to trust Mike Waltz with righting the ship from the inside. With Waltz at the helm, the UN will have what I regard as what could and should be its last chance to demonstrate its actual value to the United States. Instead of progressive political virtue signaling, the Security Council has the chance to prove its value in settling disputes and brokering deals. We can overhaul bloated and unaccountable peacekeeping missions where we can work to counter Chinese influence in standard-setting bodies, and we can end UN sponsorship of terrorism and anti-Semitism, standing by our allies, including Israel. Above all, the U.S. must ensure that every foreign aid dollar and every contribution to an international organization, particularly the UN, draws a straight and direct line to a compelling U.S. national interest, one that puts America first, not last. I have every confidence that Mike Waltz is exactly the right person who will faithfully apply this standard to the UN Byzantine labyrinth and carefully scrutinize our position in the financing of UN bodies, particularly those that have proven adverse to our interests. Waltz is tested, he's capable, and he's ready, willing, and able to tackle this daunting challenge at the United Nations. We need him at the UN. We need him there now, and I think he's the perfect man for this very position. I look forward to his swift confirmation. He has my unqualified and wholehearted support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Lee, for those wise comments. Senator Scott, for the good of the order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to introduce my friend, President Trump's pick for U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz. I want to recognize his family. Thank you guys for being here. You must be very proud of what Mike has accomplished, and I'm glad you're here to support him. I've had the privilege of knowing and working with Mike for many years. We were both, he was elected to the House and I was elected to the Senate the same year. And it was great to work alongside him with a lot of issues that Florida families dealt with. He was always a tireless advocate for freedom and democracy, and he understands the dangers that come from appeasing dictators. We worked to ensure the likes of Nicolas Maduro and Putin could not benefit from hardworking Americans' taxpayer dollars. I know that as Ambassador of the United Nations, he will bring that same commitment and love of liberty to represent the United States in advocating for the very America First principles the American people elected Donald Trump to champion. He's a patriot. From his time in uniform on the battlefield as a Green Beret to his time defending American ideals in Congress, he has proven his love, his dedication, and his willingness to sacrifice for our country. He has shown a willingness to make hard decisions, support his colleagues, and do what is right. He is a man of integrity, grit, and principle. He will exceed expectations in this role. As Senator Lee has said, we've got a lot of issues with the United Nations, and I know Mike Waltz will do the right thing. So he has my support, together with President Trump and Secretary Rubio. I'm confident that he's going to do an outstanding job representing America's interests at the United Nations. I urge my colleagues to advance his nomination quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Senator. Appreciate those remarks. Now, Senator McCormick is going to introduce Christine Turretti. However, he's traveling with the President in his home state and has asked me to read the introduction. I'm honored to do that. And so on behalf of Senator McCormick, quote, committee colleagues, I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person for today as I welcome President Trump to Pittsburgh. But I'm grateful to the chairman for allowing a statement of appreciation and support from my friend Christine Turretti, the nominee to be Ambassador of the United States to the Kingdom of Sweden. A pioneer in many walks of life, I first met Christine when my father was the chancellor of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, and she was a trustee, and she has been a dear friend ever since. As a businesswoman, she's the former chairman and CEO of the S.W. Jack Drilling Company, the largest privately held land-based drilling company in the United States. She serves as vice chairman of S&T Bank Corp. And is a former director of the Pittsburgh Federal Reserve Bank. As a passionate philanthropist, Christine has served on many nonprofit boards, including the International Medical Corps, the Andy Warhol Museum, the Gettysburg Foundation, and has dedicated energy to training programs designed to educate, empower, and advance women. Christine is also an extraordinary force in politics, supporting candidates and party organizations at the local, state, and national levels. She serves as the National Committee Woman of Pennsylvania to the Republican National Committee and was previously the co-chair of the RNC Finance Committee. She was one of the people I consulted first and relied on the most when I ran for the Senate. Finally, and most importantly, she is the mother to 3 sons, Joe, Max, and Matthew, who are the prime motivators for her drive to serve and provide a better future for America. Her astute business acumen, selflessness, and political leadership make her an ideal nominee to lead in this important post, and I'm certain she will honorably represent President Trump and the United States as our next ambassador in Stockholm. I encourage my colleagues to vote to confirm the extraordinary Pennsylvanian and American. Very good remarks. Christine, welcome. Glad to have you here. Well, we're going to proceed now, and so that everyone knows where we're going here, I'm going to give an opening statement. I'm going to then yield to Senator Shaheen, who will do likewise, and after that we'll hear 5-minute presentations. Hopefully you'll keep it to 5 minutes or thereabouts of our nominees. If you want to go beyond 5, we've got a lot of room in the record to publish your remarks, so feel free in that regard. After that, we'll open it to a round of 5-minute questions, and with that, I'm going to proceed. So, thank you again to our witnesses and your families for being here with us today, and for your willingness and your family's willingness to help you serve this country at such a pivotal time. Mr. Waltz, you come to us with a breadth of experience in Congress, our nation's military, and the executive branch, which has been detailed already here this morning. This experience will serve you well as you take the lead at one of our most critical diplomatic positions as ambassador to the United Nations. The UN is always a challenge and desperately needs reform, which we've been unable to accomplish so far. Your pragmatism and patriotism is sorely needed in New York because, as you know, there is a lot of anti-American sentiment at the UN. Anti-Semitism and anti-American sentiments are on the rise, as is the influence of China and Russia. You will be integral to U.S. efforts to stand up to the authoritarian and communist axes that seek to undermine the United States and our allies, and to ensure that our partners at the UN take burden sharing seriously. The United States has been the largest and most generous donor to the United Nations since it was created 80 years ago. Today, the United States still pays 22% of the UN's regular budget and 25% of the peacekeeping budget, even though we're one of 200 countries on the planet. America has been extremely generous, but taken for granted, obviously. The U.S. cannot continue to accept the current inequitable financial arrangements where America pays a disproportionate amount while others benefit from contributing to their fair share to peacekeeping operation, humanitarian aid, and good governance, and many times denigrate us. We must also eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse that are endemic to the UN system, from inflated procurement contracts and duplicative programs to the misappropriation of humanitarian funds and employment of personnel-sanctioned regimes. It's important that we get back to doing what the UN was chartered to do, and it has what everybody knows as mission creep, and it happens every year. The time has come to demand radical transparency and genuine reform that ensures every American dollar serves its intended purpose of making America stronger, safer, and more prosperous, and to return to the UN to its core and founding mandate of maintaining international peace and security. Mr. Waltz, I trust that you will work with President Trump on any wrongs that exist today at the United Nations. Ms. Toretti, the U.S.-Swedish relationship has been built on years of strong diplomatic engagement and security cooperation. Sweden's entry into NATO, something I worked hard on getting done, brought its highly capable armed forces and defense industrial base into the alliance and has made us stronger and safer. Sweden has always recognized its responsibility for its own defense, and now it is deepening its commitment to our shared security by committing to NATO's new pledge to spend 5% of its GDP on defense. It is important that we help further deepen that integration into our alliance alongside with our partners in Europe. This is a critical time as China and Russia are making designs on the Arctic and contesting areas of shared U.S.-Swedish interest. And as you know, Sweden is on the front line of dangerous developments in the Baltic Sea, from the sabotage of critical infrastructure to the reckless behavior of Russia's shadow oil fleet and increasingly provocative Russian military activity. And they sail merrily along. I look forward to hearing how you will help Sweden defend against these threats and advance all aspects of our relationship. Mr. Arrigo, Portugal is an important ally of the United States, and there are many opportunities for us to deepen cooperation. Portugal has made commitments to increase spending in support of NATO's defense, and the U.S. must remain committed to ensuring it reaches their goal. The U.S. must also work with Portugal to address the critical risks it faces from heavy Chinese investment. China is working with our adversaries to undermine America and our allies, most recently by its open commitment to support Russia's war against Ukraine. European allies, like Portugal, must recognize the threats posed by China and address them accordingly. I hope you carry that message with you when you go to Portugal. With that, Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to each of our nominees this morning, to your families and friends who are supporting you in this effort. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and in your case, Congressman Waltz, to continue to serve the country. Yesterday, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee minority released this report on China's growing influence at the expense of the United States. This report makes clear that this competition is one of our central geostrategic challenges. This is a competition that is deeply connected to our economy and to our lives here at home. Whether combating unfair trade practices and IP theft, or stopping the flow of fentanyl into our communities, or protecting Americans from spying and cyber attacks, or helping U.S. companies stay ahead in developing batteries, electric vehicles, and AI, the stakes are very high. The threat to our prosperity and security is real. But unfortunately, instead of strength and focus, we've seen this administration pull back on a global scale. As the administration fires thousands of highly specialized, nonpartisan experts and cuts America's diplomatic budget by 84%, China leads the world in diplomatic missions and is increasing its budget. And the situation at the United Nations is especially alarming. President Trump has said that the UN must return to its core mission of peace and security. But the administration is also proposing to slash U.S. contributions to the UN and eliminate the entire UN peacekeeping budget, increasing the likelihood that American soldiers will be sent into combat zones and making China the largest UN peacekeeping and financial contributor. The Chinese Communist Party must be very pleased at our efforts. They continue making long-term investments at the United Nations and international organizations, not only through contributions, but by placing more Chinese nationals in key roles. Mr. Waltz, I urge you to take this threat seriously. I know you do because you've served on the China Commission. But if we walk away from international bodies like the UN, the result won't be reforms that advance American interests. The result will be that international bodies become increasingly dependent on China, whether it involves technology and AI standards, or global health, or trade deals, or documenting human rights abuses in Ukraine. China will be writing the rules. I don't think most Americans want to live in a world where the Chinese Communist Party is driving the agenda. There remains broad bipartisan agreement that American leadership on the global stage is essential, particularly as China's expanding footprint threatens our safety and prosperity. That's why Americans need a voice not only at the UN Security Council, but at the International Civil Aviation Organization, which ensures airspaces remain safe, at the World Food Program, which prevents famines and responds to crises, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which works to eliminate these dangerous weapons, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, which helps reduce the threat of nuclear war. Put simply, we cannot shape these organizations or even push for the reforms that we want unless we're at the table. Mr. Waltz, if confirmed, I hope you will work with this committee to preserve America's ability to lead, to compete, and to shape the future on America's own terms. Mr. Arrigo and Ms. Toretti, because the UN ambassador post has traditionally held cabinet-level status, my remarks have focused on that role. But I also look forward to hearing from each of you how you would advance America's interests in Europe through the posts in Portugal and Sweden. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. We'll now hear from the nominees, and we'll start with Mr. Arrigo.
Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today as President Trump's nominee to be the United States Ambassador to the Portuguese Republic. I'm enormously grateful and honored by the confidence President Trump and Secretary Rubio have placed in me. I am blessed to have a wonderful and supportive family, my wife Megan, my daughters Alyssa, Angela, Amanda, my brother Jim, my sister Virginia, my nephew Freddie, and my good friend Pat, who just flew in this morning. Thank you, Senator Graham, for your gracious introduction. If confirmed, I pledge to serve my country honorably, to advance our core national interests, and to always put America first. I've been a successful entrepreneur and business leader for over 30 years. During this time, my experiences have given me deep expertise in managing teams, negotiating complex issues, and most of all, building relationships. I'm confident that my professional experience and business acumen delivered over 3 decades will enable me to represent and advance U.S. interests effectively and carry out the mission President Trump has entrusted to me. I am privileged to have this opportunity today, in large part due to my family, and particularly my beloved parents, Joseph and Frances Arrigo. My father was a visionary leader behind our family business, the Arrigo Automotive Group, which he established with my brother Jim, and that eventually became one of the top auto groups in the country. As a family business, we built our brand focused on our employees, our customer relationships, and not just the transaction, which are traits I will carry forward into this next chapter. My desire to serve as ambassador and advance our core national interests are born out of the recognition of how my family and I have been blessed by the privilege of being citizens of this great nation, and now I have the opportunity to give back to my country. If confirmed, I will use all the expertise I have developed to cultivate our relationship with Portugal and to make our nation stronger, safer, and more prosperous. Portugal is a founding member of NATO and the second country to recognize American independence. Nearly 1.5 million Portuguese Americans live in the United States, helping to generate a strong and vocal pro-American sentiment in Portugal and fostering close bonds of friendship. I've had the honor of visiting the Azores Islands for a wedding just a few years ago. I was particularly struck by the breathtaking natural beauty, the rich and diverse culinary traditions, and the warm hospitality of the Portuguese people. I was fascinated by the religious, cultural, and family values that resonate deep within my own Italian heritage. The U.S. has turned to Portugal for political and material support in many peacekeeping and peacemaking efforts throughout the years, and they have always been an enthusiastic supporter of U.S. and NATO operations around the world. Portugal's hosting of the U.S. Air Force 65th Air Base Group at Leges Field in the Azores provide a key logistics hub in the Mid-Atlantic, while providing critical support for aircraft, air crews, as well as communication services to U.S. and NATO allies. If confirmed, I promise to enhance this close historic relationship in several key areas. My first objective as ambassador will always be the safety and security of American citizens abroad. Tens of thousands of Americans call Portugal home, and 2.6 million Americans visited Portugal just last year, making the United States the third largest source of tourism in Portugal. Second, I will strengthen Portugal's contributions to NATO to ensure we can achieve peace in the region through strength. Although a trusted ally, Portugal still lags behind most NATO countries by only 2% reaching this year. As ambassador, I will work with Portugal to help increase defense spending with the Hague Defense Commitment of 5% and ensure Portugal does its fair share and contributes to more of Europe's security. Finally, I will advocate for expanding our commercial ties with Portugal and addressing the national security challenges posed by rivals like China. As the United States and Portugal's largest trading partner outside the EU, there is a significant potential to grow this economic relationship. I will also work closely with Portugal to address concerns about China's investment and influence in critical sectors and to ensure our protection of our mutual economic and national security interests. If confirmed, I will also work to balance our trade relations with eliminating the trade deficit of over $3.5 billion with Portugal by seeking more export opportunities for American businesses, emphasizing the fact that America is open for business. Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. I look forward to answering your questions and, if confirmed, working closely with all of you to strengthen our relationship with Portugal and advance our core national interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen. It's my honor to be here as President Trump's nominee for the United Nations. First, I also want to thank my family, especially my wife, Julia, herself a fellow combat veteran and accomplished diplomat. And if confirmed, you will definitely get double the bang for the taxpayer's buck. I have my mother, Brenda, here, who has always been my rock and who bootstrapped her way through life. My daughter, Anderson, a rising senior at UC Boulder. And I have spared the Capitol Police, our 3-year-old son, Army, and his energy. I think they may have a hard time keeping up with him. But I also want to especially thank my fellow Green Berets, SEALs, veterans, and particularly the Gold Star families that are here today. We have had each other's backs through wars shaped by decisions made in this building. I promise to keep them and to keep all of you in mind as we support President Trump's focus on peace through strength. So our experiences obviously shape how we approach these positions. And for this one, my experience as a Green Beret serving alongside NGOs, development agencies, the UN, out in the field, in Africa and the Middle East, has certainly shaped my view. I've seen many organizations that frankly mean well, but execute poorly. Lack of coordination, bloated bureaucracies, poor contracting. I have literally seen over and over again hospitals that lack beds, schools that lack supplies, schools with supplies where they lack teachers. And by the time the aid filters through layers of subcontractors, only pennies reach those in need. As a former congressman, I bring the perspective of representing hardworking Americans, welders, nurses, teachers, small business owners. And if we were at a town hall looking at them, could we answer their questions on whether their money was being well spent? Many of them, frankly, in my former district would ask, should we be in the UN at all? Here's how I'd answer the question. I'd answer number one, with the UN's need for reform, but also its potential. We should have one place in the world where everyone can talk, where China, Russia, Europe, the developing world can come together and resolve conflicts. But after 80 years, it's drifted from its core mission of peacemaking. We must return to the UN's charter and first principles. Peacekeeping certainly has an important role, but also needs reform. The U.S. funds 25% of these efforts, yet we have missions in Africa. I've talked to a number of you about this during our visits. They cost billions, tens of thousands of soldiers. We've had two that have been around since the 1940s with no mandate renewal and no end in sight. We must press the Security Council on length, cost, clear end states, and focusing on peacekeeping, not nation building. Countering China, absolutely, Senator Shaheen, is critical. It's absurd that the world's second largest economy is treated as a developing nation in most UN agencies that gives China favorable status. China pursues its personnel or pushes its personnel into roles at all levels, including bodies that set international standards, aviation, telecommunications, IP. U.S. leadership is essential there. America must have a strong voice, and if confirmed, I'll work with Secretary Rubio to challenge this influence. We must also challenge pervasive anti-Semitism. From 2015 to 2023, the General Assembly passed 154 resolutions against Israel versus 71 against all other nations combined. UNRWA in Gaza, with its staff involved in the October 7th massacre, its schools teaching anti-Semitic hate, must be dismantled. The reappointment of Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, with her calls to boycott American companies doing business with Israel, highlights this bias. President Trump's executive order, Chairman Risch, your Stand With Israel Act require withholding funds from such bodies. And I fully support Representative Elise Stefanik's proposal for an Abraham Accords caucus within the UN. Regarding budget, the UN's revenue, overall revenue, has quadrupled in the last 20 years, yet I would argue we have not seen a quadrupling of world peace. It has not been commensurate. The U.S. pays more than 183 countries combined. Meanwhile, 28 countries contribute just $37,000 and $5,000 to peacekeeping. The UN has ballooned to over 80 agencies with overlapping missions that waste resources, and if confirmed, I'll push for transparency, like what we're seeing in the Secretary General's UN 80 reform plan, calling for a 20% staff cut. It's worth remembering that despite the cuts, the U.S. is by far the most generous nation in the world. And finally, the UN's radical politicization. Such reports as, quote, stolen Native American land, reports and investigations, quote, called the George Floyd mechanism, labeling American police in America as systemically racist, with input from countries like Cuba and Venezuela, it's unacceptable. Mr. Chairman, Ronald Reagan once said the UN can, quote, solve problems or spread discord. He said the choice is ours. In just 6 months, President Trump has brought dozens of hostages home, justice for our Abbey Gate Gold Star families, secured the border, denied Iran a nuclear weapon, brought ceasefires to conflicts in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Yet there is still tremendous work to be done. I'm confident under this president's leadership we can continue to spread peace and prosperity, and I'm confident we can make the UN great again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Ms. Toretti.
Chairman Risch, Ranking Member Shaheen, and distinguished members of the committee. It is an honor to appear before you today as the nominee. Should I start again?
We heard you. Go ahead.
I'm pretty loud. It's an honor to be here today as the nominee for ambassador to the Kingdom of Sweden. I'm deeply grateful to President Trump for the trust and honor he has placed to me with this nomination. I am committed to serving the United States with dedication and integrity, and I look forward to working closely with the esteemed committee to advance our nation's interest in Sweden. It is a humbling experience indeed to be nominated for a position such as this, yet I sit before you today prepared to share with you how my experiences in business, philanthropy, and public service have prepared me for this moment. Before going further, however, perhaps my greatest accomplishment.
You've been watching live right now the Senate hearing on several ambassador nominations.